Thank you so much for attending another episode of MMR Scam. No Boots Brew. Now, if you're anything like me, one of the things you love doing in Dota is going on Dota 2 Pro Tracker or Dota Buff and seeing which heroes have a win rate that doesn't make any sense. And if you go to those websites and look up Position 3 Brewmaster, you'll see that he has a 49 to 50% win rate depending on the day of the week. Typically, that's not worthy of an MMR scam video, but what if I told you that there is a Brewmaster build taking over high-level pubs that, if you go it, has a 57% chance of winning you the game? That is higher than any other hero's win rate ever since Valve decided to finally kneecap all 5 Meepos at the same time, and that means that if you want to get some guaranteed MMR, Brewmaster is the hero to pick. In the current meta, Brewmaster can function as both an insane teamfighter as well as an ultimate win condition, thanks to Primal Split. All 3 Brewlings are extremely impactful and give access to a variety of both offensive and defensive abilities, but the most interesting of them all is a passive on the Earth one. It has Demolish, which allows it to deal bonus damage to buildings, and that furtive detail, so easily forgotten, is the reason Brewmaster is not only a teamfight demon, but also a split-push win condition. With Nature's Prophet in unpickable territory, Lone Druid finally getting some nerfs, and Jakiro entering that one scene from Higurashi with the fingernails, he is now the most potent tower pusher in the entire game. And, thanks to his reworked innate, he can do it without even buying shoes. The idea behind No Boots Brewmaster is taking advantage of Demolish along with the other abilities afforded by Primal Split and using them to create checkmate scenarios where it is impossible for you to lose, as long as you don't mess up the micro. Frankly, of all the MMR scams that I've done so far, this is probably the single most powerful, and I wouldn't be surprised if Valve decides to take the bear out back for 7.41c. Until then, you need to abuse it, and I am going to show you how. But first, I'm going to show my Patreon. Another replay review is going live very soon, and it's going to be for a Herald match, so I can finally rip off Jenkins and not feel too bad. Link is in the description if you want to check it out, and if you're already a patron, thank you very much for your continued support. So before we get into the how of this MMR scam, first I want to talk a little bit about the why, and unfortunately, there's going to be too many reasons to list. Of all the reworks that happened in 7.40, Brewmasters was by far the most insidious. First, because no one even realized how broken this hero became after these changes, and second, because there were so many lines of text that most players didn't even read at all. Even I'm guilty, because you can go back and read my patch analysis and hear me go, I don't know, I think he's alright, and then move on, as if I didn't just witness a war crime written inside of a notepad file. The most impactful change, and the reason you don't have to go Boots of Speed, is because of his new reworked innate that gives him a massive boost of movement speed whenever he dips below 50% of his max HP. This change is just barely enough to make it feel impossible to kill Brewmaster in lane, because he is always going to outrun you even when you finally get those phase boots. The only way to do so guaranteed is to either have a metric ton of CC or have a carry with both mobility and burst physical damage, and considering that PA is currently unplayable dogshit, you're probably not going to have either of those, much less both. Also, all Brewlings receive the full value of their stance whenever he's in Primal Split, and this makes all of them individually way stronger. Considering that you already wanted to be them the entire game, this build has finally given you the justification to do so. And that is the philosophical basis of the build, because now your Brewlings are so strong that they make your base hero feel like shit. So why be your base hero at all? Instead, just be Primal Splitted the entire match. That's going to be the goal of your item build, but when it comes to actually playing him, I'm not going to recommend picking him if you aren't able to at least dick around in demo mode for a little while. No matter how many times I call him brain dead in the laning phase, even I have to admit that Brewmaster is one of the more difficult heroes to play in Dota 2, and if you don't have a firm grasp of your micromechanics, you're going to wind up as a member of the 43% of players who somehow lose on him. But don't let that completely discourage you, because somehow, on Brewmaster of all heroes, his first and second strongest traits are passives. Now, if the idea of spending 90% of your match in Primal Split sounds interesting, or you just really miss playing Lost Vikings from Heroes of the Storm, here is how to play No Boots Brew. You're going to start out in the offlane, and you're going to max Cinder Brew as soon as possible, with just 1 point in your other spells. 1 in stance may not sound like a good idea, but believe it or not, it's somehow more than enough. If they're harassing you with spells, stay in Earth stance to benefit from the extra magic resistance, and if they switch to using right clicks, go into Storm, because 15% evasion is just enough to make them miss twice in a row, and give up entirely. And if they ever do get you below 50% HP, that is when your busted innate is going to come into play, because you are going to get bursts of 25% bonus movement speed, which is enough to outrun everyone. One of the things you'll learn very early on playing as No Boots Brewmaster is that all of the numbers on your hero are completely made up, because somehow that 25% is enough to outrun a phased Bloodseeker. Pick up a wand and embracer in order to make that 50% a little bit more challenging to reach, and then you're going to skip boots to save up for a Hand of Midas. Now this is where your teammates may start to flame you, but you're going to want to ignore them, because all of the other items on your list are expensive as hell, and you're going to need that Midas in order to farm them up. Once you hit level 6, you can abuse that power spike to force the enemy laners out, and then you're going to pick up an Aghanim Scepter as soon as you can. This item buffs all of your Brewlings by an additional level, making their made-up numbers even better, and also improving all the abilities. Of equal importance is the fact that all of your Brewlings will now begin Primal Split in the Brewed Up state, meaning that their respective stances, which automatically apply to them, will be boosted by 150%, and it'll gain even more duration of that whenever they cast a spell. And third, and most fucked up of all, your Aghanim Scepter will allow you to cancel your ultimate early, letting you get out of a bind if it looks like your Brewlings will actually die. Not that that's going to happen very often, but hey. From there, you can pick up a Refresher Orb in order to have 2 casts of Primal Split, and then Assault Cuirass, which might seem a little bit strange. The reason why you're doing this is because all of the auras that Brewmaster have are centered around the Earth Brewling, and that is the one that hits buildings the best. The general idea with Brewmaster in a team fight is going to be casting Primal Split, putting whoever is most threatening on the enemy team up in a tornado, forever, and then A-clicking the nearest enemy building with the Earth Brewling. Spam spells off cooldown in order to maintain the brewed up state, and watch as your Earth Brewling demolishes a tier 3 tower in about 8 hits. Pick up a Blink Dagger for safety since you can spam it whenever you're reforming after Primal Split. And there you go. For the rest of the game, you can now blink into the enemy trees, pop your ultimate, send the Earth Brewling in using its magic immunity to wail on the tier 4s, and wait for the enemy team to give up. The sheer quantity of building damage combined with the ridiculous amount of effective HP you have during Primal Split makes Brewmaster almost impossible for many teams to deal with. You, as one individual hero, can combine the most annoying traits of Nature's Prophet, Juggernaut, and Meepo all at the same time, and now you understand why he has a 57% win rate. I wrote a little bit about install characters and how Brewmaster's design relates to them. Feel free to read it if you like. And finally, to atone for the sins that I've unleashed upon the world in the MMR scam series, I'm going to start doing some helpful counters to these strategies. Though the stats paint him as a complete monster, No Boots Brew is not completely unbeatable, and while he is able to create checkmate situations, there are ways to avoid putting yourself in that situation in the first place. The first and most obvious answer is to pick carries who are able to deal enough consistent AoE physical damage to actually kill the Brewlings. Only a single-digit number of heroes come to mind, but Sven and Luna are both pickable in the current patch, so you can start with them. However, if you'd like to contribute to his rising 57% win rate, you can instead go for Gyrocopter. However, if you don't have an option to actually kill the Brewlings, you can instead try to kill Brewmaster himself when he's yet to get off the second Primal Split. Basher is an inconsistent option, but you can upgrade to an Abyssal Blade in order to get a guaranteed stun, with a few more seconds available for your teammate to walk up and pop an Orchid Malevolence. A serious downfall of the No Boots Brew build is that he's also unable to buy a Dispel, because what would be the point of it when he's 3 different dudes all the time? Take advantage of that weakness and pick up an Orchid early to make sure you only have to survive 1 cast of Primal Split. Now, while Brew is usually famous for his incredible team fighting, the current incarnation of him loves nothing more than seeing the enemy team get distracted, allowing him to walk in and twerk all over your Ancient. Anti-rat maneuvers, like what you would do against a Nature's Prophet or Anti-Mage, will go a long way to help, such as preventing the enemy creep waves from approaching where your tier 3s used to be. If you can clear out waves quickly and from a safe distance, you're going to keep backdoor protection up, lowering the chances of you getting your MMR scammed by a guy who didn't buy boots. In conclusion, No Boots Brew is inexorable, and you should absolutely play it. Brewmaster is the final stepping stone on the path to playing Meepo. If you missed out spamming him before the B patch, this build will prepare you for the next time that Meeps has a 60% win rate. Peace on planet Earth.